All right, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a really fascinating book, Morgan Housel's bestseller, The Psychology of Money. Now, if you're thinking, okay, another finance book, lots of charts, maybe some stock tips, think again. What's so cool about Housel's approach is he kind of sidesteps all that technical stuff.
Right.
Instead, he dives into, well, us, our behaviors, our emotions, the biases that, really drive our financial choices. It's less a how-to manual and more a how-to-think guide.
It really is.
So, our mission today, we're going to pull out the absolute core insights from this book, give you a shortcut to understanding money, maybe in a fundamentally different way.
Yeah, and what's so compelling, I think, is that shift in focus. It's not about predicting the market. It's about understanding yourself.
Exactly.
That makes finance feel, more human, more manageable for everyone, really.
Totally. And that leads right into one of the first big kind of counterintuitive ideas he hits us with. Wealth is what you don't see, which really pushes against, what we usually think of as wealth.
Like the fancy cars and big houses.
Exactly. The flashy stuff. You see a supercar, you see a huge mansion, designer labels. But Housel says, hang on, that's mostly a sign of spending.
Right. Money gone out the door.
Yeah, that new car. It represents money that left the bank account. He argues, pretty convincingly, I think, that real wealth is the money that isn't spent. It's the savings quietly growing, the investments compounding away that nobody really notices. It's less about consumption now and more about, options later.
Precisely. And that idea, the hidden nature of wealth, connects directly to another core principle he really hammers home. Compounding is powerful.
Ah, yes, compounding.
Yeah, but he explains why it's so often missed. We're kind of wired for immediate results, aren't we? We want the big win fast.
Impatient.
Exactly. But Housel shows that the real, superpower in finance is small, consistent gains over a really, really long time. Think about trying to get rich quick with some risky bet versus just steadily investing year after year, decade after decade.
The boring approach.
The boring approach.
Yeah.
But it almost always wins because it leverages time and avoids those, disastrous mistakes driven by impatience. It's all about that long game.
It's that quiet, steady accumulation. But, okay, even if you're patient and disciplined, Housel reminds us we're not totally in the driver's seat. There's this other big factor. Luck and risk. Luck and risk matter.
Yeah, that can be a tough one for people to swallow.
It really can. We love stories about pure skill, right? The genius entrepreneur, the brilliant investor, and sure, skill matters a lot. But Housel makes a strong case that chance, just pure random luck, good or bad, plays a huge role, maybe even more than we like to admit.
He uses great examples like Bill Gates and the specific, incredibly rare opportunity his school had with a computer back then.
Right. It wasn't just genius. It was circumstance meeting preparation. It forces you to be a bit more humble about success and maybe a bit more forgiving about failure, too.
It absolutely does. And it helps us think about planning, factoring in things we just can't control. This ties into his point that tail events drive results.
Tail events. Okay, explain that a bit.
So a tail event is something really rare, way out on the edges of what's probable. Thing like a massive market crash or finding the next Amazon early on.
Okay, low probability, huge impact.
Exactly. Housel argues that a surprisingly small number of these kinds of events, or maybe just a few key decisions, can end up shaping the vast majority of your long-term financial outcome. Like maybe just one or two investments out of dozens are responsible for almost all your gains over, say, 30 years.
Wow.
It adds this layer of unpredictability. Not everything is neat and tidy cause and effect based on our actions.
And that unpredictability, maybe mixed with a bit of ego or forgetting about luck, can lead to trouble. Which brings us to another key behavioral insight. Enough is enough.
Well, this is a big one.
It's huge, and it's less about math, more about psychology. He tells these stories like Rajat Gupta, who had, everything, wealth, status.
Yeah, incredible success.
And yet risked it all, ended up in jail, basically chasing more, just a little bit more. It's a stark reminder that unchecked greed, that inability to say, okay, this is enough for me to be happy and secure, can be absolutely ruinous.
It really highlights the danger of moving the goalposts constantly.
Yeah. Finding that point of enough is maybe one of the hardest financial skills there is.
And what's fascinating is why finding enough is so important. It links directly to what Housel calls the ultimate benefit of money. Freedom is the ultimate dividend.
Oh, I love that framing.
Me too, because he argues money's best use isn't necessarily buying more stuff. It's buying control over your time, your life.
Options.
Options. Exactly. The ability to, say, change jobs without financial panic, or take time off, or retire a bit earlier, or just handle an emergency without stress. That feeling of independence, of controlling your own schedule, that's the real return.
Yeah.
You only get there, really, once you've defined what enough looks like for you, unless you step off the treadmill.
It completely reframes the goal, doesn't it? From just more accumulation to liberation. Which leads perfectly into what might be the book's central thesis. Behavior intelligence.
Yes, this is core Housel.
We're sort of conditioned to think financial success requires, a PhD in economics or being a math whiz.
Right, complex models, algorithms.
But Housel says, nope, it's much more about your habits, your discipline, how you react under pressure.
Emotional control.
Yeah. It's less about what you know and more about how you consistently act. He argues that someone with average intelligence who has good saving habits and patience will often do far better than a genius who's impulsive or easily spooked by the market.
And if we zoom out, that focus on behavior is really why this book struck such a chord.
You think so?
Absolutely. It makes personal finance feel accessible. It says, look, you don't need to be Warren Buffett, technically speaking. You just need to manage your own human tendencies. By focusing on things like fear, greed, impatience, things we all experience, he gives everyone, practical ways to improve. It's empowering. You control your behavior, even if you don't control the market.
That's a great point. And let's talk about how he gets these messages across, because the book itself is really well done.
Oh, definitely.
A huge strength is just the storytelling. It's clear, it's engaging. He avoids jargon almost entirely.
Very readable.
Totally. He uses these great little anecdotes and historical examples, like Buffett's insane patience, obviously, but also cautionary tales like lottery winners who blow it all.
Right. Illustrating the principles through real stories.
Yeah, it makes the ideas stick. It feels less like a textbook and more like wisdom being shared.
For sure. Now, while it's incredibly strong, we should probably acknowledge what some might see as maybe limitations, but Housel might say they're intentional choices.
Okay, well, he does tend to revisit the core ideas, compounding, behavior, luck, through different stories. Some might find that a bit repetitive.
I could see that. Reinforcement, maybe?
Could be. And, crucially, this is not a book that gives you step-by-step instructions on exactly what stocks or funds to buy.
No, definitely not a how-to investment guide.
Right. And that's deliberate. Which raises an interesting question, doesn't it? Is a book focused on mindset, on understanding your own psychology, ultimately more valuable for long-term success than a prescriptive guide? Housel seems to bet firmly on the psychology being the foundation. Get that right, and the specifics become easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. So bringing it all together, what's the big picture, the overall impact?
Well, I think
It feels like it fundamentally shifts the focus. It tells us managing money well is less about complex calculations and more about managing ourselves.
exactly, mastering emotions, cultivating those good habits, having patience, discipline, especially when things get crazy out there.
Avoiding panic, avoiding euphoria, staying steady.
Okay, so let's try and distill this even further. Let's pull out 5 really clear, actionable lessons from the book that you can actually use in your thinking.
Good idea.
Lesson 1, save, not just to buy stuff later, but to have options.
Crucial distinction.
Yeah, it's not just about saving for a down payment or retirement, though that's important. It's about building flexibility, control, a buffer. Think of savings as buying yourself freedom. The freedom to change careers, maybe move, handle an emergency. It's about resilience.
What's so empowering there is how it changes your relationship with saving. It's not deprivation, it's building power.
Yeah.
Building a safety net that lets you navigate life's curveballs or even seize unexpected opportunities. It's saving for control.
Right. Okay, lesson 2. Happiness is greater than riches. Sounds maybe a bit cliche, but Housel makes a strong financial case for it.
He does.
True wealth, he argues, isn't an ever-increasing bank balance. It's finding contentment with what you have, avoiding that trap of constantly needing more. He talks about that man-in-the-car paradox, right? You buy a fancy car thinking people admire you, but they're really just imagining themselves driving it. Chasing status often doesn't deliver the happiness we expect.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, it really challenges that default assumption in society that more money automatically equals more happiness. It pushes you to define what success and contentment mean for you personally.
Yeah.
It might involve money, sure, but it's probably also about relationships, health, purpose, things money helps with but can't directly buy.
Very true. Lesson 3, avoid extremes.
The middle path.
Exactly. Housel points out that both ends of the spectrum, like reckless gambling or being so cautious you hide money under the mattress, rarely lead to good long-term outcomes.
Right. One leads to blow-ups, the other to missing out entirely.
Yeah. Finding a balance, an approach that fits your own tolerance for risk and your goals, is usually the most sustainable way to build wealth over time.
Which raises that important question again. How do you find your specific balance point? It's not one size fits all. It requires self-knowledge, understanding your own temperament, your fears, your long-term plans.
Definitely a personal journey. Okay, lesson 4. Time matters more than timing.
Classic investing wisdom, but so often ignored.
Isn't it just? Housel really drives this home. Staying invested consistently over the long haul is way more effective than trying to jump in and out, predicting market peaks and troughs. Trying to time the market is, well, notoriously hard, even for the pros. You miss just a few of the best days and your returns can tank.
What's fascinating there is just the raw power of time itself. It links straight back to compounding. Time is the magic ingredient. The biggest returns often don't come from brilliant moves, but simply from sticking around decade after decade, letting that growth happen, riding out the bumps. It's about endurance.
Patience again. And finally, lesson 5. Money amplifies character.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I thought so too. The idea is that getting wealthy doesn't fundamentally change who you are. It just turns up the volume on your existing traits.
Like a magnifying glass.
Exactly. If you're generous, more money might make you more philanthropic. If you're anxious or greedy,
Yeah.
well, wealth might just make those things worse.
So connecting that to the bigger picture, it serves as this really potent reminder about self-awareness, about working on your character alongside your finances. Because how you handle wealth, how it affects you and the decisions you make is ultimately a reflection of who you already are.
So, know thyself, right?
Know thyself. Seems like a fitting summary. So to wrap this up, the biggest takeaway from the psychology of money, it feels like it's that true financial success isn't really about the numbers game as much as we think.
It's about mastering our own messy human emotions, respecting that incredible power of compounding over time, and maybe most importantly, figuring out what enough actually means for you personally. This whole deep dive really was about trying to understand that deeper layer of financial well-being. Security, happiness. It's more than just the balance sheet.
Which leaves us with a final thought, perhaps a question for you, the listener. Given these insights about psychology, about behavior, about defining enough, how might thinking about these things change your approach the next time you face a big financial decision or even had a major life goal?
That is definitely something to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gives you some valuable perspective for your own financial journey.